What's up guys, welcome to Wasted Space, and we're back in Space Engineers, and I'm back working on the next gen Carrrier again. And I've been doing a bit of work on the structure of the Carrrier of late, like I mentioned in my last video, and it's been really boring. But what it did lead me to is the question of how I want to do the escape pods for this, because as I've mentioned previously, I really want stuff to be kind of intrinsically part of the ship until it's necessary. So in front of me here is what we've got as far as my solution for the escape pods, and this has taken a lot of variants, and in fact has ended up as 4 variants I'm going to show you in this video, because there are a few different characteristics that I wanted that were really hard to achieve. So first of all, we've got in front here 2 different variants of essentially the one design, and this is the design. Basically, I wanted things to be included as part of the structure of the ship, so I wanted it to feel like it was just a corridor. And unfortunately, there were a few issues with this. I initially started trying to use merge blocks, and this is what I've come up with as the merge block solution. So you'd run in here, things going wrong, you have to imagine that corridor is actually part of the ship. And you could either hit this button here, but we're going to jump into the cockpit in order to give ourselves a proper view of what's going on. So here we are, and I have a whole bunch of stuff setting up, so I'm just going to hit 1. And this is, oh my god, escape, abort, let's get out of here. So as you can see, we've detached, we're being flung downwards by both gravity and those thrusters. We release a whole bunch of decoys, and at this point the thrusters are going to turn off and give us control in a second. At this point it's kind of assumed that you've escaped far enough and it's time for you to actually take control of the ship and fly the hell out of there. So as we make our escape, the decoys are still distracting them hopefully, and we are off. So that is this variant, and you could have quite a bit of room in here for, let me stop up and show you the inside a little bit. It's all battery powered, so you've got, if you look on here, plenty of fuel time on the 4 batteries that are mounted on this. No need for reactors, no need for it to be part of the conveyor network was part of the thinking there. And if I jump out, whole bunch of seats, and you're tucked within this heavy armor block, so you're nice and safe as well. However, it had some issues. And the issues with that one, as some of you might have noticed, is it's not really very fast. And one of the things you want to do when you're escaping is move pretty quickly. So I then adapted it a little bit into this variant, which is exactly the same thing pretty much, except this one's made out of light armor instead of heavy armor. So it's not as well protected, but the end result of this one is it's considerably faster. Not going to demonstrate that now, just trust me, this thing accelerates considerably more quickly than the one you've just seen. Instead I'm going to go on to the other variant, and this was the one I wanted to do first, and the variant I tried first. And if I just glimpse behind me, that's what it looks like when I've spent the afternoon playing around with a concept and trying different ways of making it work. And at the top there, the multicolored things were some tests for what I'm about to show you. So this thing here is the other variant. So again, I'll run in. This one is designed to be actually part of the corridor system itself. So as you can see in here, it's literally a corridor. You could have this as part of the whole corridor network of your carrier. And when something goes wrong, you run to the nearest one of these, wherever they are, and this particular version is designed to be on the bottom of the ship. You could flip it on its head, and all you'd need to move is the door and these chairs and so on. And I'll just jump in here, don't mind that the doors are open, and show you what this is going to be like. And the bar over the top is literally just to connect the 2 sides together so it behaves like it's a single ship with this in the middle of the corridor. So a bit of imagination necessary, but same deal. I'm just going to hit 1 to trigger the, oh the hell, we've got to get out of here. Aha, weren't expecting that. So yes, I went for the explosive detonation escape route with this one. The merge blocks just weren't letting me escape. I needed to remove the material that was blocking me in. And so with a bit of playing around, I've managed to come up with this version that admittedly it does destroy the doors, so you've got these little holes, but otherwise leaves the craft and all of its bits intact, still battery powered, still off we go. But we've separated from the ship using essentially explosives on the basis that once you're in a position where you're going to be using these escape craft, it is all over. So a little bit of damage dealt with to the ship is not going to be the end of the world. And again, there are 2 versions of this, so there's that one, and then there is another version I made that is, again, a little bit more light armor. You can't, this one needs the heavy armor, and at the end I'll talk a little bit about why you have to have the heavy armor, but this one needs the heavy armor to function properly, so I could only lighten this one a little bit in comparison. And then finally, if I go up here we go. Here is an example of it actually, okay, it's applied to a ship that, understand, is a lot smaller than the Carrrier will be. This is something that's designed to be carried by the Carrrier. So I adapted it a little bit, attached these to the sides. Might give away a little bit about what the design ethic is for the whole Carrrier, because as you'll notice, these have actually clamped onto the sides of an already existing ship. My plan is to carry that through, but here you could have got an example of it as an escape room actually built into a ship. So this ship could come under fire, and you would, as same deal again, run for the escape pod, get on board, shut the door behind you, and then these work in the same way, although because I've copied and pasted them on here, they're going to launch both of these escape pods at the same time because of how the groups function. But anyway, hit one and same deal. They eject, the thrusters come on to clear you from the building, and this is one of the faster variants, so you can see this is accelerating quite a lot quicker. Thankfully we missed the debris there. And once we get down to the bottom of our arc, we've escaped with the decoys, the engines are going to turn off, give us control, and we can get away. Now, let me go into a little bit about how I've actually done this. Now you guys have seen sort of what exactly it is that these things do. So first of all, I'm going to go over to my experiments to show you a little bit about that explosive, not that one, the explosive separation version, because this took a little while to get right, but turned up some really interesting results, which is what all these coloured things are about. Basically, I'd been trying this explosive separation thing, and in order to make it work, it seems that if you were to make it entirely out of light armour, if I come down here you can see, it does some really weird things to the blocks around it, as I've mentioned in previous videos. So this here separated really nicely, and I thought, cool, that looks like it works. Let me change this around, put one on the other end, and the end result of putting one on both ends and then detonating them is it destroys the thrusters on it. This is, unfortunately, looks like I've reloaded and don't have an example of that variant, but it does extra amounts of damage. So with a bit of playing around, I went up here and decided to see what exactly happened when you put things in different places. So let me grab out my machine gun, and I was doing this and just seeing what the results were and seeing how far the damage spread. And as you can see, against heavy armor, it's not a great idea. Doesn't really do a huge amount. But the results really got interesting when you put a single layer of light armor in there as well. So I hit this one. It pretty much completely removes the light armor, but leaves the heavy around it intact. So I continued down that line of thought and thought, okay, so what happens if we move it away a bit? And the answer is, immediately it does nothing to any of it. And same result there. You can see it's deforming the armor a little bit, but it's actually just not leaving any damage at all on the light. So using this, I kind of played around a bit until I got to a solution where, like this one here, it is heavy armor with this single layer there, and when you break these, they separate the ship, not damaging anything here, and the magic distance is 2 blocks. So 2 blocks is what you want away from your sort of break point in order to make sure that it's not going to damage anything on the craft that you're breaking away from. And then strangely I went on to lighten it and found even more weird results. So you see these blast walls in here. If those blast walls aren't present and you do this on a light armored variant, so we've got some light stuff over here. Where's my current proper version? Here we go. Right, I'll cut across this because it's a little way away. Yeah, so this is the sort of finalised version, and I've covered over the warheads with these panels like I often do, and all I'm going to do here is I'm going to blow up one end manually with the machine gun like it's currently built, and you can see it performs like I suggest, destroys the whole way through but leaves everything around it intact and doesn't even touch. You notice here we've got those 2 blocks of heavy armour, but then it's light, and that at this point doesn't matter. But if I go on this end and go inside and remove the wall of heavy in here, or even just change this wall of heavy into one of light, and then go and detonate that warhead, everything will change. So we go inside now, and it started wrecking seats, it started killing thrusters. It's actually done less damage than in some of my testing. But again, look, the ceiling's starting to buckle in. And that was from the wall. I haven't changed any of the other distances. All I did was change that wall in the middle, which you'd think wouldn't make any difference, into light instead of heavy. So there's my that's how I was doing the separation with this one. The other one is relatively straightforward. The other version is literally just a big square of merge blocks, and I just had to line things up nicely so that the thrusters were still usable when they dropped out. And then finally, the sort of actual setup of how the insides work is all, again, done by timers. So on this version, this is the slightly more complicated one. We've got a 3-timer system. First one turns on the batteries, turns the batteries off, recharge, and turns them on. And that's what causes the ever so slight delay you see after it separates, is batteries for some reason take a while to kick in. So there's a slight delay, they turn on, it releases, then we have the thrusters in a group and it turns those off. The reason it turns them off is because otherwise the inertial dampers would fight back against the mass block, which is just turned on to use the gravity of the ship to help it escape. And then we also have a set of thrusters that are specifically dedicated to forcing it out of the ship. And then it starts the next timer. And while this is called mass off, it doesn't just do that. It turns off the mass so that you can no longer be interfered with by gravity fields and gravity weapons. It turns the thrusters timer on, so this is the next timer in the system is started. And then it releases the 3 decoys on the roof. And then the final step in all of this is this one here, which is where it turns off our escape thrusters and turns on our standard ones. And the only thing you could really do, there's a few things I'd do with this if I was to advance it further, and the same is true for this explosive variant. Firstly, I would make it bigger. There's not really enough room on there to fit enough thrusters, so you'd want more thrusters to get a proper speed from it. The second thing I'd do, and this is, I think, a real missed trick, is at the moment, those escape thrusters on the roof become pretty much useless once you're sort of underway. If I was to have this entire ship, so if I was to get rid of this cockpit, and where's my cockpit 3? If I was to have this entire ship pointing that way, and this is the back, you could then still be using those escape thrusters. So that was something I didn't think of until right at the end. I looked at it and went, why on earth didn't I do that? It would be so much easier if it was just flying that way in general. But these are minor things. I think the general sort of concept and how it functions is pretty cool. And I'm going to go across, just quickly show you how the explosive variant works. The coolest bit about this is, of course, getting that separation right. And I do think it's, while it's perhaps a little bit less functional than that one, even though this is the one that acts as a corridor, which is cool, so it can actually be part of the ship. If you imagine this hanging sort of in the corridor network on the bottom of the ship and separating literally from the corridor, that's how I plan these ones. But the other thing with these ones, the thing that makes them really cool is just the fact that it's all explosive based, and while it's perhaps a little bit less practical, it's just a cooler solution. But anyway, going down to finally how this one is done. Very similar order. These aren't visible because they've been destroyed. They are the warheads, obviously, and that was safety off, and that one was detonate. Batteries again, same as before. Mass again, same as before. All of this is basically the same as before. The only difference is instead of having the merge blocks in the place, you have the warheads in there set to detonate. And the warheads on the design are literally just inside that light armor variant. I'd be really interested to see if anyone can come up with any other uses for this whole separation technique using explosives. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. While it's not visually the most stimulating, this one, I think it's quite a cool concept, and I'm glad to have this design ready. You can start to see how I want to assemble this carrier in modular parts and make it all work like that. Hope you found it interesting. If you did, please hit like, please hit subscribe. It really helps me and the channel out. Please throw out any further suggestions you have for the carrier, or even any further challenges. I'm not done with those. There's more to come. And thanks a lot for the feedback on the last video about what you'd like to see me do on the extra day that's probably Thursday. I'm going to take that on board and probably see that happening just after Christmas. So cheers, guys. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you next time. Woo!